Hello, my name is Matthew and I'm a student at Professor Aguiar's Discovery Writing class. And today I will discuss social media's influence on society and how we should handle it. In the year 2022, social media plays a critical role in our society today. Its unique ability to rally people together for a cause and the way it inspires mass movements for positive social change shows it's full of promise, but it can also be dangerous. One critical aspect of social media's influence that is not seen at a first glance is its effect on mental health. Although it's really impossible to deny that social media has not created wonderful things in the world, it has. It's reunited families together, it's created awareness, and it even organizes like disaster relief programs. The results are there. Nonetheless, there's every coin has two sides. And with all these social media outlets that we have today, young adults are so obsessed, young adults like me, in my age, 22 and younger, are so obsessed with their online personas, believing it represents who they are, what they enjoy, and like what they believe in a way. Ironically, this hinders what the industry is really supposed to be about: connection. The industry was created to be a fun way to interact with friends and colleagues and potentially create new relationships. But now the intense pressure of follower counts and likes on a post may give the impression that you may not be cool enough online. The yearning for validation is prevalent on these platforms. And now this could create some anxiety for parents of children under 16 and younger. Nowadays, kids are getting younger and younger are getting on these platforms. And this could put them at great risk because, younger kids are more impressionable. So they're at greater risk of getting manipulated and even in a way controlled because these social media sites are just so powerful with their algorithms and strategies. Now, many parents may give their children a cell phone with the main reason and intention to just stay in contact with them. Yet, according to the Moss report by C.S. Mott Children's Hospital National Poll on Children's Health, half the children aged 10 to 12 years and 1/3 of children aged 7 to 9 years are using these devices to engage with others on social media apps. This poll this one right here represents the challenges that these parents face when monitoring their kids. As you can see, 21% of parents have the challenge of just not finding the parental controls on these apps, like the screen time for social media. 32% of parents are having trouble with their kids finding ways to get around these platforms. This represents a good amount of parents. But this does not clearly represent a clear connection with mental health. However, there is a harrowing concern from parents that kids these days are going on these platforms too soon will more than likely see more negatives than positives in their overall experience. Now, the rest of this video will be divided into 3 main areas that will help strengthen my argument, which is that we should become more knowledgeable and aware of social media's tendencies and strategies, the need to create limitations on those strategies and limitations is necessary and beneficial to our mental health because we are having excess usage on these platforms. We're on these apps way too much. So the first area we're going to dive into is the unintended obsession with social media. This industry has become one of the biggest inventions that our society has ever known. The first area will set the foundation and explain the real and scientific reason why we are obsessed with these sites. And that reason is dopamine. In reference to Hope Crystal's medically reviewed article, dopamine is a type of neurotransmitter that our body makes. Our nervous system uses it to send messages between cells. It plays a major role in our drive to seek and repeat pleasurable activities. When you feel good that you have achieved something, it's because a surge of dopamine hit your brain. Now you may be wondering, how does this connect at all? Well, According to Simon McCarthy's scholarly article, he quotes that humans have a fundamental need to belong and a fundamental desire for social status. As a result, our brain treats information about ourselves like a reward. Our brain's valuation system activates. Much of this system is also activated when we encounter self-relevant info. Now, this type of info we put a lot of weight on. That's why when you're out and you're in a crowded room and you hear someone from across the room that's far away from you say your name, you easily catch that and it goes into your consciousness when it's about you. So, social media knows this. They grab and keep us on these platforms because these apps involve self-relevant information and they bear the power of our social status and reputation. McCarthy also quotes that the greater your need to belong and be popular, the stronger your brain's reward centers respond to your reputation. That's why these sites have become so irresistible to us. The heavy influence and almost control-like power these corporations have are at a level where they can no longer really be destroyed by market competition. Companies like Facebook have already learned to quote-unquote hack people's emotions and manipulate opinions, so users cannot be easily persuaded to switch to another social media site. But it turns out that internet giants like Google and Facebook are always collecting vast amounts of data about us. They both combined hold more than half of the internet's advertising market. So you may be wondering, why do they care so much about us? It's strange, right? But the thing is, they don't. What they truly care about is attention. They sell our attention to advertisers. According to an article by Reality Tunnel, they sell our attention to companies that produce goods and services. By engaging in virtually any kind of activity on the site, we give corporations access to our eyes and ears. They analyze our perception of the world, our likes and dislikes, and in return, what we get is a virtual version of the world tailored to us in such a way that keeps our attention on as long as possible. There's actually a documentary out there called The Social Dilemma, and it's out on Netflix. And what it's basically about, it shows ex-employees from Google, Facebook, from these major social media corporations, and these guys and gals basically sound the alarm on how these social media sites manipulate us and almost control us. And that's what their main priority is. These guys explain it in such a sophisticated, eloquent way that you guys should, I recommend it. It's only an hour long. And there's actually two main takeaways that I took from that film. And the first takeaway is that our attention is the product. I previously mentioned how this happens. This is the fundamental business model they use. And in general, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. William James, an American philosopher and psychologist, quoted, "Your life experience is what you choose to pay attention to," end quote. If companies are capturing and manipulating our attention, how in control of our lives can we be? The second takeaway I took from this film is that addiction is built into the design of these social media sites. In the documentary, many ex-employees pointed out these networks exploit human weakness by designing with something called positive intermediate reinforcement. It's the dopamine we talked about. Tristan Harris, a former Google design ethicist, says that he compares it to a slot machine. Anytime we get a notification, it's basically like a slot machine that we get excited for and we're wondering what the jackpot is. So anytime you get I don't have my phone, but anytime you get a notification, that's basically it. And you're like, whoa, what is that? So that's why anytime you do work, I personally put my phone, I turn it off, put it on airplane mode, and put it away. So I just don't get distracted by notifications because I will respond to it. So now we will move on to the second part of this 3-part section. And the second part is well-being. With all these platforms that capture our attention and keep our eyes glued on, the fact that more and more children are getting on shows that our mental health and well-being are being tested. One way it's being tested is comparison, unnecessary comparison. By triggering comparison with others, it can raise doubts about self-worth, potentially to mental health issues like anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. But researchers have yet to show a direct causative relationship between mental health and social media. Yet it's more than a coincidence that rates of anxiety and depression in young people have risen concurrently with those of those with high social media usage. While these sites may cultivate friendship and reduce loneliness, evidence from ACC suggests excessive use negatively impacts self-esteem and life satisfaction. We chew more than we can swallow. And so rising rates of depression have coincided with the rise in smartphone use. A study published in the journal Clinical Psychological Science in 2017 looked into suicide rates, depression, and social media usage in more than 500,000 students. Between 2010 and 2005, they found a 33% increase in the number of adolescents with high levels of depressive symptoms, and that the fact that 31% more died by suicide. Now we will look into the area where we can discuss solutions and take back control. Regaining self-control. Now I want to make clear that I do not want to create this narrative that social media is this gigantic evil social media monster that we should get off and destroy to smithereens. That's not what I'm saying. I just believe that we just need to raise awareness of the risk of heavy overusage and the fact that these platforms are constantly being obsessed over for no reason. So I'd like to show some practical solutions to regain that self-control and combat low self-esteem. And one way is moderation. Use social media in balance as a part of a lifestyle that includes things like sleep, exercise, socializing, and helping others. Another way it could stick with us is to add limits to your screen time if you're on an iPhone. If you're on Android, they most definitely have apps to add limits to it as well. And another way is mindfulness. The concept of mindfulness stems from a form of meditation practice called Buddhism. There are other ways, but I look into Buddhism. It promotes self-control by directing one's attention in a deliberate manner. The process of self-control can make mindfulness serve as a detector of certain feelings. Thereby, experiencing a lack of self-control may have decreased their sensitivity to respond to certain feelings. Thereby, experiencing something like meditation is an effective way to increase mindfulness. Referencing to a longitudinal study from PLOS Ones that was published in 2021, they discovered that failure in controlling one's social media usage was stably associated with lower mindfulness and subjective vitality during an 8-month period. Another result found was that social media self-control failure preceded lower mindfulness after 4 months as well. Therefore, increased mindfulness implies the possibility of strengthening social media control. Lastly, awareness. I've already discussed this, but understanding the overall general strategy behind these corporations and how to retaliate and regain your control creates greater satisfaction in your well-being. You can start to use social media without it using you. Thank you for listening. Fucking hell.